The sparrow is Jack Gartside's most famous fly. He tied it about 35 years ago fly fishing for trout in Missouri, and I've found it to be perhaps one of the most effective nymphs when you're looking for smallmouth bass or pretty much any kind of warm water venison. It is a fabulously effective fly. I carry it in everything from size 4 down to a size 12. What's really special about the sparrow is that it's tied with just two materials, dubbing and the feathers from a pheasant. It's simple, it's fast, it's effective. Don't leave home without it. It's really a great fly. Let's tie one now. The sparrow we're going to tie today is going to be in a size 6. It's a wonderfully productive pattern, and it can really imitate a lot of different kinds of animals. It's a wonderful imitation of everything from a hexagenian nymph to a small crayfish to a small minnow to a Johnny darter, just all kinds of things. Once again, you tie this with the feathers of a pheasant. You can tie it with a lot of different feathers. If you want to tie an attractor type pattern, you can tie this with the feathers of a golden pheasant with really wonderful, brilliant feathers, and it can really make a special kind of a pattern out of it. But the one we're going to tie today is going to be tied with the feathers of a ringneck pheasant. So we're going to tie this on a size 6 hook. We're going to use a Mustad CS53S signature hook. I'm going to tie this on a size 6. Once again, I carry this everything from a size 6 down to, or a size 4 down to about a size 12. I'm going to use a size 6/0, which is a 140 denier brown thread. You can use a black thread or any color that you happen to have. Start your thread right behind the hook eye. Stop it about 4 hook eyes behind the hook eye right there, because believe it or not, that's where we're actually going to tie the tail in. Now what we want to do is we want to select the feather for the tail. Taking a look at the pelt of the pheasant, what we want to do is we want to select one of these rump feathers. These are the pheasant marabou feathers. We want to select one of these that has a nice squared off tip. What you want to do is you want to go ahead and you want to pluck this feather out with a nice squared off tip. And it's very important that when you select this, that you go ahead and you pluck that out. It's important that you're very careful with it, because you want this feather right here. That's called a phyloplume. That feather right there is very important. We're going to use that later on. So make sure you take that off. Put that aside. We're going to use that. Now take this pheasant marabou that we've plucked. What you want to do is you want to stroke that end, square that up so that you have a nice looking piece, and measure that so that you have a good looking tail there. Go ahead and clip that material about the right length. You don't have to be exact. Start to tie that in. Wrap that back. Now I've got a tail that's a little shorter than what you'd see on a woolly bugger, but it's a little bit longer than what you'd see on, say, a mayfly nymph. Clip the rest of that material off. Now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and we want to tie in the body of this fly. The body of this fly is dubbing, and what I use is I use the fur from a red fox squirrel, and I blend that with a little bit of a sow scud, orangish, Antron dubbing. I've got a little bit of that I've already blended together. I use a technique for dubbing. It's kind of a Dave Whitlock technique, or at least that's where I saw it in one of his videos. And it's a really easy technique. And what you do is you take a little bit of that dubbing that you're going to need for the body. You don't have to use too much of it. Just kind of make a noodle out of that dubbing. Twist that onto that thread. Just get it started and push that up. Now you don't want to go ahead and twist it all around the thread. Just twist it to get it started and hold the dubbing. And as you hold that dubbing and start wrapping it, the dubbing will actually twist itself around the thread. You want to form a carrot-shaped body back up to the point where you started tying in that tail. You want a nice, kind of a buggy, kind of a real shaggy looking body, so you have a lot of motion right there. Now, you want to take, once again, from your pheasant pelt, you've got a couple of different feathers here. You've got church window feathers, and then right above that you've got these kind of greenish, really neat quasi-church window feathers. And those are a soft hackle kind of a feather. We're going to pluck one of those right now. This is something of a soft hackle kind of a fly. So you want to select one of those feathers where the barbules are going to be about as long as the body and about halfway to the tail. Select that feather, then go ahead and kind of stroke those barbules back up and clip off the end of that. So you have a little triangle of that material. That's what you're going to tie in using an open loop of thread. 2 or 3 tight wraps. Then bring your thread up to the eye. Now what you want to do is while you're holding that feather up, just stroke those barbules straight over towards you so they're all onto one side. Now make one full turn of that feather, stroking those barbules back, and then go ahead and lock that feather in with 2 or 3 tight wraps of thread. Clip the hackle stem out. What you have is sparsely hackled but long hackled, a soft hackled fly. Now, at the very beginning, we took those philo plumes, or the under feathers, that are really the insulation on the pheasant, and we took those out and we put those aside. And I've got 2 of them there. These are extremely delicate. The tips of these are going to break very, very easily, and you really can't use a hackle plier on these because a hackle plier will immediately cut them. What you want to do is you want to tie these in by the butt section of them. So from the butt of these, just strip away a little bit of that soft material and then clip that off with your scissors. Take the 2 of these and just tie those in right there in front of that soft hackle that you just put in. Bring your thread back up to the front of the hook. Now begin to wrap those in. The butts of these are good and strong. What you want to do is wrap those barbules back, take a wrap, stroke it back, take a wrap, stroke it back. Build a good bushy head right in front of that. When you've taken 2 or 3 wraps of that, go ahead and tie that off with your thread. 2 or 3 wraps. Now you can either cut this off or you can break this off. Sometimes it'll break for you. Build a small, neat thread head. Now on this particular fly, a lot of times I'll just use a 5 or 6 turn whip finish rather than using any kind of head cement, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to get a lot of head cement into these very soft materials and end up taking away from that lively motion, because that's what makes this fly so effective, is that inherent motion. So what I'll do is I'll actually use a double whip finish. That fly will just never ever fall apart. Go ahead and clip that thread, and what we have is a fly that has got a tremendous amount of inherent motion. It has no internal weight, so what I'll do is I'll fish this fly on a longish leader, and I can fish it either dead drift or with an active motion. I can fish it on the bottom or up in the water column. I can fish that as an imitation of a nymph. I can fish that as an imitation of a crayfish, or I can fish that as an imitation of a bait fish. It's just a fabulous pattern. It's very effective. It works for smallmouth bass, for largemouth bass. It's a great trout pattern. It works for catfish. It's a great carp pattern. It works for bluegill. I can't think of a fish that it doesn't work for. Just make sure you have it in your fly book, because if you don't have it in your fly book, it's not going to work for you.